And we are live.
What's up, world? Although
So,
I'm looking over here, but I'm actually should be looking here where my camera is, but I'm not. So this whole conversation, I'm going to be looking at you on the screen, but everyone I'm looking over there. It's
I see
confusing.
people who have those. Yeah, you did that once before, and I've seen people who have that kind of setup, and then they'll sort of shift over to the camera every now and again.
It ain't easy doing a TV show.
Indeed. So, welcome to episode 119 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf.
Hey.
In the house tonight, we have Might Bill Young.
I should say Mighty Bill Young.
Yeah, grumbling and growling, but his spelling ain't the best. But, you know,
I'm in New Jersey
doing the best he can. Yeah, public schools.
Like I'm allowed to say, screw it. Here we go. Let me fix that.
What are you going to do?
Just this. There you go.
So, this is number 4 of the Monsterverse. We started off with Godzilla 54, and then we went to 2014 with Rod, and then we went to Shin last week with you, and next week, we're here now. Next week, we're going to be going to King of the Monsters. But this is, for all intents and purposes, and then we're going to go Kong versus Godzilla, and that'll pretty much wrap up the entirety of it. And Rod is going to be with us next week for King of the Monsters.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Right now, after watching 3 of these movies in the Monsterverse and the original, I arrived at the conclusion, and we've had 4 movies from Legendary now in 8 years now, 7, 8 years, whatever that was when Kong vs. Godzilla came out. I'm putting my money on this over the Jurassic Park franchise, hands down.
Yeah. The first Jurassic Park was great.
Yeah.
Take it away from that, but everything after that was a steaming pile of garbage.
Yeah. I mean, I want to like, and I do enjoy the first 3 movies. Lost World wasn't nearly as good. I thought Julianne Moore was annoying, and I like Julianne Moore a lot, but she played a really fucking annoying character. The 3rd movie was completely unnecessary. I mean, it was great to see Sam Neill again, but the story just didn't make any sense. And then they essentially did a soft reboot of the original trilogy, which they're now wrapping up again with this 3rd movie. And the big thing is they're bringing the 3 people from the first trilogy together now with, Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard from the 2nd trilogy. And I could care less. Yeah,
it's a living meme. It's that meme with Newman. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Now, the thing of it is what I realized is that it's the same movie 6 times in a row.
Yep.
Man creates dinosaur. Dinosaurs
like a Tom
escape.
Petty or an Aerosmith hit. They just keep releasing the same songs over and over again, and people keep buying it.
This, on the other hand, I think is a lot more fun. You get completely different stories. I think you get cooler creature designs. It is similar in a sense because, Jurassic Park gets its inspiration in many ways from Godzilla. But I think they're better movies.
Yeah.
I think by far they're better movies. This movie in particular is set 50 years in the past.
Yep.
From where we got with the 2014 movie, where we're going to get with King of the Monsters, where we're going to get with Kong versus Godzilla at the end of the Vietnam War. Just a completely different setup and just a really fucking fun and fantastic movie. We're talking Kong Skull Island. So if you're ready to go, boogie woogie. So this movie right now, if I'm not mistaken, is streaming on HBO Max.
Yes.
I own a copy of the Blu-ray, so I use that. I want to get my, $9.99 worth. But I believe all of these legendary Monsterverse pictures are playing on HBO Max, so catch them now. They're fun to watch. They're great summer movies. They don't take themselves too seriously. They're exactly what they pretend to be, and they do a good job doing it. And with this movie, they had some really first-rate casting. I was very impressed. You had Sam Jackson, you had Tom Hiddleston, you had John Goodman, you had Brie Larson. I liked Brie Larson in this. It's a pretty fucking good movie. Hold on a second. We got a comment. We got Slasher Fred. Are you going to review the 56 original King of the Monsters or the remake? We are going to review the remake. The remake, I thought, did a pretty decent job with the monsters. It's a big fun movie. Maybe at some point we'll come back because I think King of the Monsters, the original, is also streaming on HBO. Maybe we'll come back to that at some point in the future. But we're doing basically the legendary 4 movies. We did Shin, the Japanese flick, and then the original Toho classic.
Right.
So this movie starts off not even in Vietnam, but in World War II.
Yeah, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was a great original opening. I was totally on board the second I figured out what was going on.
Yeah, you've got an American pilot and a Japanese pilot in World War II getting into a dogfight. They kind of shoot each other down, and then, they land, and, everyone's going for their weapon, and, nobody can shoot anybody because they're just so adrenaline jacked and scared and fucked up from their planes crashing. And before you know it, the Japanese guy pulls out a sword. Of course. And he's chasing the American, and they're fighting and, going hand to hand. And it's not a Steven Seagal movie. It looks exactly like what 2 guys who are basically kids, going at it, these young people that are going off to war, and there's a little bit of blood going on, but it's nothing too gory. And all of a sudden you see the referee from hell just come along, this enormous fucking hand come and just slam down. And it was like the biggest dad on fucking earth just saying, knock it the fuck off.
Yep.
And, this head appears in this, it's just massive. And I remember when I heard that they were introducing Kong to the Monsterverse, a lot of people were saying, well, I hope they're not going to bring him into the Godzilla movies because he's going to be tiny.
Right.
Because Kong, as we recognize him, especially from the 76 movie, which, I've talked about how I hate those movies for the obvious reasons. They're just so fucking tragic and infuriating that they actually built a scale model that was 40 feet high. I remember buying the picture book, from school. Yep. That was a big thing, going to see that with Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges. And that was a 40-foot high monster. This thing is like 10 times the size of that.
Yeah.
It's just enormous. And I remember when we researched for Shin, I think they said that the Godzilla from that movie was like 400. It was like 20 feet taller than the one from Legendary, and it was like 440 feet high or something like that. So it's 10 times the size of the 76th Kong. They have to make a Kong that is equal to the task,
right?
Of this new, franchise that they're launching, and it is.
Yeah, it has to be scaled to the 1968 movie. 65 movie. Case may 64.
Hold on a second. We got Slasher. I think that King Kong was inspiration for the classic video game antagonist Donkey Kong. Both characters abduct a beautiful woman. Yeah, I love Donkey Kong. I don't seem to recall that my dad bought me Donkey Kong. I asked him to, and he bought me something called King Kong, which was like the knockoff fucking Donkey Kong. But I was appreciative, and I didn't solve it anyway. So I didn't get ColecoVision. I went from 2600. And I think I asked for a ColecoVision, but then he bought me a 5200. And at that point, I sort of phased out of video games anyway. And with the exception of a brief exploit in the late 90s where I was renting an apartment where they had a Sega Genesis, I haven't really looked at a video game since then.
We were spoiled. We had our 2600, but most of my video game playing was at the arcade, or the pizza place in town. But you're not Gen X if you didn't play some Donkey Kong along the way.
Yeah, well, it wasn't for lack of wanting to, but I ended up with King Kong. But then we got to, I had like Pole Position and, all those other different, Space Invaders and that kind of Defender fucking Asteroids.
Defender was the shit.
Yeah. That was a high-speed game, man.
That was the one that was in the pizza place and took many dollars from me after school.
I don't think I ever
high school.
I don't think I ever lost more money on a game than I did on that one Dragon's Lair.
Oh, Dragon's Lair was fun.
Which I never could get the hang of it, but that's just the way it worked out. So this movie sort of fades to black when you see that giant hand. It's like the hand of God, or some sort of, God or deity just comes slamming down, and there's the enormous thing just comes, rising up out of the cavern.
It's a good reveal, man.
Yeah, it's solid. It's solid. I mean, so this is the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first 5 minutes. It already gets right at it. So I'm like, fuck yeah, this is going to be great. Because I didn't want to watch another fucking tragedy like Peter Jackson had done, maybe 10 years before that or something.
Sure.
Like that.
All the Kong movies seem to be the same beats, which is, Beauty and the Beast, and Kong dies at the end. But except for the Toho Godzilla versus King Kong. So
yeah, and here
totally wasn't expecting the remake once again.
Now, the trope that we've talked about in Godzilla movies is that man rises too high. Godzilla sort of comes along to let man know where he really stands in the scale of things.
Yep.
With this movie, it's a little different in the sense that it's not nuclear energy or disastrous kinds of things, although some nuclear bombs do come into play in the storyline. It's technology.
Yeah.
Technology has come to the forefront, and we have satellites now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have cameras in space that can look down and see, at the end of the Vietnam War, kind of all different things that you never had access to before.
Right.
So, all the secrets in the world is becoming much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we get introduced to Randa, played by the great John Goodman, who comes along and is soliciting a senator for access to this island that they believe contains something. They're not exactly sure, but, machines may be rising up, and become more intelligent than man. They want to get the jump on whatever's out there. They don't know what it is. They're kind of lying to the senator. It's Richard Jenkins is the senator, and he just does a great job of just being this exasperated person who's in it for like 3 minutes.
It's a good scene, although I have to question if you're part of a super secret underground department of the government that's investigating, oddities like, I don't know, giant monsters across the U.S. and there's all this secret information. Are you really going to get out of a cab in the middle of Washington, D.C. with a briefcase that says Monarch?
I got the impression that these people were kind of along the lines of Scully and Mulder.
Right.
Like, sure, they're the head of a super secret organization that absolutely no one gives a fuck about.
Right.
Like Mulder. Like Mulder's the king of the fucking FBI, but their solution is just to ignore him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to kill him. It's not to silence him. It's just they put him in the fucking basement office where everybody laughs at him. And it doesn't make a difference if he's going to tell the truth about alien conspiracies and werewolves and vampires, because no one's going to listen to him.
Well, that's what the culture was at the time. You had the In Search of Leonard Nimoy.
Project Blue Book. Yeah.
The Bermuda Triangle was big, and the search for Bigfoot and Loch Ness
Nessie,
Monster.
the Loch Ness Monster.
That was all like creeping into the mainstream in 1975, 76.
Sure.
And people were just making fun of it.
Sure. Because, think about it. It's an effective strategy. You really don't have to do anything. You don't have to take any extraordinary measures. You can just fucking dismiss the person. Yeah, what do you want? That kind of thing. As long as you can, just be dismissive, then who gives a shit what they know? Because
Right.
no one's listening in the first place.
But
So,
meanwhile, he's putting addendums into spending bills to get them, you know,
yeah,
money enough to get a military escort
escort.
to go check
Yeah,
out this island.
yeah, which no one takes seriously, especially the senator, until he says, well, the Russians are going to get their satellite up there about 3 days after we
Right.
do. And don't you want us, whatever it is, to see it first? And that's the only hook that the senator actually bites on, because otherwise he's like, get the fuck away from me. And the secretary's been canceling appointments, for weeks now. They just, that's their policy. But finally, when that happens, they finally get a little rhythm,
Sure.
get a little bit of money, and a military escort. Hold on a second. We got
all it took back in the 70s to get money is just say the
the
Russians.
communists. Yeah, the communists are going to get there first, and we can't have that. Gorillas have been stereotyped as being the antagonist. There was a series in the 1970s called Super Friends. Oh, yeah, Gorilla Grodd. I love Gorilla Grodd. He always teamed up with Solomon Grundy. There was an episode of Scooby-Doo where a gorilla terrorizes a movie studio. Hey, man, think about Murders in the Rue Morgue.
Yeah.
Or nobody took Carl Kolchak seriously. Yeah, his own editor.
Kolchak and the Night Stalker.
The Night Stalker. He was the prequel to the X-Files.
Yes.
And they actually brought Darren McGavin in for several episodes. He didn't play Kolchak, but he played this guy who sort of was the person who opened the X-Files. He plays this guy named Arthur Dales. And those episodes are great, watching the interactions between him and David Duchovny. Huh?
My favorite one's when he's after the vampire. It was the first one I saw as a little kid.
That's a scary one, yeah, because they always came on like at 11:30 at night.
Yes.
They were late. They were late shows. Yeah, they were very dark. They were much darker than anything you were getting in prime time. And Eric is here. He's in the house. He said, I had no idea that I would love this movie as much as I ended up loving it. Damn, this was good. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So they end up, it turns out we're like days after war has, there's been an armistice, I guess. The war, Vietnam War is officially, it's coming to a close. These guys have drawn down. I think they're in Thailand. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't go with like special forces, or anything like that. They went with like a helicopter cavalry crew. I was like, okay, that's an interesting way to play it. And of course, they're led by Colonel Packard, played by the great Sam Jackson, who I thought was fantastic in this.
Sure.
And that he starts out as like the leader of the military and just becomes this evil bastard, which he does an excellent job of always doing.
Yeah.
By the end of it.
Yeah, he totally becomes Moby Dick style, trying to get Kong, and he's the one that's going to get him.
Yeah. Now, let's go back to Randa. He's talking about 1954 and these atomic tests. Apparently, they're separate atomic tests. Or I'm not sure if he's talking about Godzilla. They were trying to kill something.
Yep.
And you're not sure if it's Kong or Godzilla. I get the impression that it's Godzilla.
It's Godzilla with all the claw marks against the military
ship. Yeah, his ship. He was a World War II veteran, and his ship was attacked. Yep. I think he's talking about. I can't remember what it is, but they're looking at this new ecosystem. He brings in Colonel. Colonel Packard. You've got, and he's an interesting guy because, but this, I mean, Packard, he's very angry.
Yes.
I mean, like all the other guys are relieved. Like they're just happy to be going home. And maybe that's the way that they're just playing it. But they're just like, yeah, man, I can't wait to get back home with a cold beer in my hand. I think the one guy's got plans to go to Key West. All these guys have plans. Packard's not.
He's a lifer, and he's facing the fact that we're just abandoning Vietnam the way it ended. And he's looking at his medals, and he's probably thinking about all his his troops that he lost, and he's,
Yeah.
what was it for? Why do we even bother?
Yeah.
He's pissed off at the government that sent him there, and he's, wants to get some payback, I guess.
Yeah, and this is 30 years after all the Vietnam movies, so I'm not sure that the younger audiences that are seeing this fully understand or understand at all. But
Yeah.
the script is written in such a way that it's very easy to pick up on.
Yeah.
This isn't Platoon. It's not Full Metal Jacket. It's not
Right.
Apocalypse Now. But the script does an effective job of setting up the exposition. It's very clear.
Well, it does spend a lot of time trying to get you to care about all these soldiers that most of them get wiped out in the first 15 minutes, but you have a few of them left, and it sets you up to where their different personalities and their foibles and what's going to happen, and it's not bad.
Yeah, it's easy to understand. Like you said, there's just enough of these guys, and they give you just enough about them that you're invested in.
Right.
Like, I was invested in every one of these characters. And like I said, this isn't an Oliver Stone movie, but there was enough in there that I'm like, fuck, the guy Cole, with the Dear Billy jokes all the time, the way that they're just, sort of busting on each other and cutting each other up all the time. It does a really good job. This is, by now we're maybe 15, 20 minutes in. So these are the people that are going to escort John Goodman and these groups of scientists into this island that no one's ever been to before, which is kind of like the Bermuda Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the scene with the fucking storm was fantastic, being narrated in a manner of speaking by Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, but they got the music going. It was a nice homage to like that Apocalypse Now scene with Colonel Kurtz. They went full on Vietnam War scene with this scene, them getting through the storm.
The soundtrack on this is fucking great.
Yeah, who'd have thought they're pulling out the Stooges of all things.
Yeah, you got the Stooges. it is a little cliche. You've got Jefferson Airplane, but you've got Sabbath, you've got Creedence.
Yeah,
this is just a fun fucking soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And so you're also meeting Brie Larson for the first time.
Sure.
Who actually plays Weaver, and her sort of antagonistic interaction with Packard.
Mm-hmm.
Who basically, he tells her to her face, you helped us lose the war.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, wait a minute. I was like, how did I help you lose the war? I wasn't even carrying a gun. And I think he basically said a camera's way more dangerous than a gun.
Right.
And he tells her, we didn't lose the war, we abandoned it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's direct, it's clear writing, really solid. They also hire in the back, you can see there, Tom Hiddleston as a British tracker,
because you have to have a guy on the ship who's British. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Well, Tom Hiddleston could have been, anybody could have played this role.
Yeah.
But Tom Hiddleston adds a little something to it. I think he did a decent job. It wasn't, like only Tom Hiddleston could have done this. I like Tom Hiddleston. I think he's a good actor. But this kind of could have been anybody. But it does add to the overall casting. And so here we go. They go in there and they're dropping bombs as like sonar, like land sonar, to sort of get a reaction of what's going on with the ground.
Which may or may not be bullshit.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, I get the seismic charges, you're trying to scope out the geology of the island and all, but maybe they're just dropping bombs to kill something.
You think it's like a Vietnam metaphor that they're just bomb crazy, like Shin?
No,
they're
not
bombing.
Like not like that, but just in the Monarch way of we're testing the geology, and meanwhile they're just dropping all these bombs, and that's like part of the scene where Tom Hiddleston's just looking at all this armament, going, "What the fuck are these idiots doing?"
Yeah. And then you've got the one pilot, Cole. and you see in the aviator sunglasses as the explosions are happening, and he's just got this big shit-eating grin on his face. You know, they're just happy, you know, probably for one last mission, but maybe, you know, it's also, you know, some other kind of message about, you know, Americans and dropping bombs. We talked about that a little bit last week.
There is and that. Remember this movie's for the Chinese market as well, so there's got to be a little bit of that.
That's true too. That's true too. So all of a sudden, and just, you know, with no explanation, you haven't heard anything from them in about 25 minutes. The helicopters are flying, and you get fucking this shot.
Yoo-hoo!
And you're just like, oh shit, it's fucking on, man, you know, and like there's no tribal people like worshiping Kong, you know, and like in the Kong movie, and you know, they haven't kidnapped, you know, Brie Larson and tied her, you know, and offered her as a sacrifice. This guy just comes out of nowhere and stomps the living shit out of them. All of a sudden, the one guy's flying, and you just see that tree come flying right at the fucking windshield.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, and all of a sudden helicopters start dropping out of the sky like
and that again, nice homage to this 1976 Kong movie where the helicopters took Kong down. It's like Kong's getting his payback on this one.
Yeah, not this one. Maybe that was Baby Kong or something like that. But this is, and even in this movie, he's considered Baby Kong.
Right.
When you talk about it a little bit later on. And I thought it was interesting that, I don't know what you thought about this. I thought it was interesting that the first reaction that the Americans had were just to start fucking shooting.
Yeah.
Like they're basically on a scientific expedition, but the first words basically out of Packard's mouth are just fucking open fire. Because he doesn't do anything until they start shooting him.
I don't know, man. I think it's just the fact that they're, you know, Vietnam vets, and all of a sudden they're being attacked by a giant monkey. I think that's the reaction you should get. I mean, if you want a scientific approach, you don't get a military escort. You know, you don't get a bunch of helicopter crews going, "Hey, we're scientists now."
Yeah. They just dropped out of Vietnam a week ago. You know, so their first reaction is just to shoot the shit out of everything. He eats that one fucking guy.
Yep.
He eats him. And I'm like, oh, this is what I love about this movie is that it's not the Kong that we typically see. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he's just stomping a mud hole in these assholes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he grabs that one by the back and it just, you see it cuts up his hand.
Yeah.
You know, but he just doesn't give a shit, and he's just smashing the hell out of everything. And
I think Kong just is reacting because he's on Skull Island, as we will see later. There's all kinds of things that could screw you up on Skull Island, so he's just gonna kill whatever's coming at him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what Tom Hiddleston says before when they're in the bar. Remember? He's like, I want to talk to you about all these things. I could possibly fucking kill you. You know, everything in there, you know, in that fucking jungle, you know, is, you know, predatory in some way or the other. And he has no idea that it's like this.
Right.
I mean, this is like Jurassic Park from hell. You know, there are no dinosaurs per se. These are all fucking monsters.
Yes.
You know, this is a completely different, you know, ecosystem. Like, you know, it really is like the ecosystem from hell.
Or Australia.
yeah, that too. Yeah, I'm not going there. Packard takes it personally.
Oh, yeah.
And you can, I mean, they almost have these scenes where like Kong and Packard are making eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it just kind of shows how smart fucking Kong is. And yeah, I mean, before they know it, it's too late and they've just been fucking smashed.
Yup.
You know, where do you go from there? You know, because now they're on the remaining people are on some sort of full war footing.
Mm-hmm. Packard's going to get his Ahab on, but the rest of them they're thrown, you know, to all creation. So they got to kind of find each other. and make it through this jungle, which is the best setup because now we're just going to see all kinds of monsters.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, those that aren't traumatized, the trauma is coming. Like some people are taking it fairly well, you know, all things considered, and then some people are freaking out, and then the gatherings kind of have to start, and that's where the real fucking trauma starts. There's the one scene where the guy fucking sees the water buffalo.
Yeah, oh, that's big. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that fucking thing. Now, I like these creature effects. I think they did a good job with them. You know, it was easy to differentiate what was actually a threat as opposed to what was not. Yeah, these were within limits. There are some other things I'll get to. Okay. The one that fucked me up when it started to get really fucking bad was that fucking spider.
Oh yeah.
Oh Jesus.
You think it's bamboo at first.
Yeah, and it grabs that fucking guy, and you know he just starts fucking hacking away at it with his fucking machete or his bayonet or whatever he has, and then they just start chopping the legs down, and it drops the guy, and then they all just started fucking firing at it, and then you know this fucking goop.
Yeah.
You know, just comes down and it gets all in the guy's mouth, and you're like, fuck, man, this is fucking awful. And then from there, I mean, you can see that these guys are fucking, yeah, they're pretty fucking traumatized. And that's where it starts to get that psychedelic Vietnam kind of thing going. You know, that kind of apocalypse now feel to it.
Right.
You know, and yeah, I mean, it completely succeeds in suspending your disbelief.
Right. Well, every good Kong movie is just an excuse for monster effects. The first one was, the Peter Jackson one was. You have to have a full-on assault of monsters in a Kong movie, you know, and these giants, these giant spiders and creatures. It's just par for the course. You got to have it before you can get into anything else.
What you figure out though, I mean, I guess what they get a chance to expand on even better than they do in the typical movies is that Kong is kind of the hero of the island. You know, and well, I guess you really don't get that too much until you start to meet John C. Reilly.
Oh, sure.
Who sort of fills in the blanks. John C. Reilly is the pilot from World War II. He's basically stuck on that island for like 27 years.
He is like the voice of reason. He's the one who's been around, and no one listens to him. And he's also incredibly funny with it. There's like all these great one-liners coming out of him.
Yeah, because I mean, he's a little affected. You know, he hasn't seen anybody from home in, you know, almost 3 decades.
Right.
You know, he's been living with these people who don't talk. But, you know, he kind of fills in the blank saying that Kong is kind of the protector of the island. He's the one who protects all the people from the monsters, the natives that do live there. And I love that scene where are they inside the ship? And all that artwork that they see where they, you know, explain who the monsters are, and they're like in panels.
Yeah. And as the camera shifts, it comes into focus and then comes out of focus. That was a really good setup. I don't know what they made that out of, though. Was it just rocks or was it something different?
I couldn't exactly tell myself, but I mean, somebody gave this some thought. You know, somebody actually, you know, took the time and said, okay, we're going to write a decent fucking Kong movie. You know, we're going to borrow some of the old tropes, but also insert some new ones in here. Because, you know, we're going to set him up for something later on.
It's visually exciting, and it deserved the Oscar nomination for visual effects.
Did it get one?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I take it didn't win?
No, but it was a nice pity nomination.
Well, I mean, it works.
Yes.
You know, it works. You know, I was thinking about that the other day. One of the things that we've talked about it on this show, when it comes to horror and things like that. We talk about genre bias.
Right.
And things get passed because of the genre bias, and horror isn't taken seriously, or sci-fi fantasy isn't taken seriously, with few exceptions here and there. Peter Jackson, and maybe what Demi did for Silence of the Lambs, and that kind of stuff. Del Toro,
Right.
Those sorts of films. But something, at the same time, the same horror fans that say that are the same people that will watch part 75 of whatever. And
Right.
you bring that up to people and they're like, well, what are you talking about, man? I don't get it. I'm like, how do you not, like, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to, I think horror has to make a concerted effort, and then that this would change the whole face of horror. So it probably won't happen. But I mean, you'd have to consistently start producing better product.
Yeah, exactly. But it's hamstrung with the notion of sequels and just squeezing change out of it. And it's a bias that's been there since the 50s with all the B movies. There were a lot of good, well-written B horror movies and sci-fi movies, but because it was every week for a nickel at the neighborhood theater, and you had horror hosts and all that, you kind of lose respect for it. You look at it like second-rate product.
Yeah,
and some of it is. But then you get something like, I don't know, The Incredible Shrinking Man, which is a very thoughtful movie, or the original Godzilla, or something like that. Even though there's a guy in a rubber suit,
right.
The problem is that you got a built-in audience that's going to consume anything you throw at it just for the hell of it, or you got those people who are in it just for the gore scenes, and those are the people, or those are the stereotypes that hold the horror genre back and the sci-fi genre back.
Yeah, and it's like the favorite thing is the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for I mean, I think I talked about it. 12 Halloween movies. Scream 6 is coming. I think there's been like 17. I think Eric said one time that there were 17 Amityville movies.
Oh, Jesus.
And so like it's like horror fans can't stop shooting themselves in the foot.
Right. But then things like that will also keep people from understanding the joke when it comes to something like Evil Dead, where it's a little bit of a nod and a smile, and it's Three Stooges, but a horror Three Stooges. And people won't get that because they're just looking at it going, well, this is just an excuse to be gross,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to sort out in horror. I don't think it ever will be sorted out. I'll keep making the case about it, this, that, and the other. But when you do get a decent movie, I think it gets lost in the 80% of everything else.
Right.
And so it's easy to just.
Then you have movies that should be B movies and fun movies, and they try and load it up with woke nonsense or some kind of very, very important through line that just makes it unfun.
I don't think they've tried to do that with horror yet, although I think they're about to. I think Kevin Bacon is going to star in this movie. It's literally called LGBTQIA+, which is about murders that take place at some sort of LGBTQ pride camp.
Okay.
This sort of thing. So, it hasn't gotten to everything yet, but this could be the end door. The door, all the doors have to be open. And once you get them open, it's very hard to close them again.
That's tricky. That's tricky water to navigate, man, because you got movies from the past like Sleepaway Camp, which, it's a good movie, but I think there's a decent argument to be made that it's also incredibly insulting and stereotyping at the same time.
I saw somebody say the other day that if Sleepaway Camp came out today, no one would get it. They'd be like, "What's the big?"
Yeah.
You'd be like, "I don't get it. Why is that a big?" You're just like, "Okay, yeah, all right, maybe," because it's not exactly wrong, but You keep making the case for the Hereditaries and the Black Coat's daughter, and there are obvious things that are going to burst through, like Lord of the Rings, and these sorts of things. But horror really does need to clean up its fucking act. Jesus Christ. I mean, there's some real fucking shit out there. I mean, I don't think there is a genre of film that's more culpable in producing, big piles of dog shit than horror. And as much as I've complained about franchises, there's no genre of film that is more culpable in terms of shitty franchise sequels than horror. But
just look at Jason versus
Freddy.
I mean, those are just ridiculous.
Yeah, but
to the point where they're not fun anymore. I mean, the first few can be fun. I liked Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and even 3 for what they were. But after a while, you're just like, all right, we get it. Jesus Christ.
It's content for content's sake. But again, you have people who just, their favorite thing is the next thing.
Yep, which is what Star Wars is becoming too, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the MCU. And
look what DC. Now we're turning,
DC was that out of the gate. I mean, you don't get Birds of Prey with mindless
DC was lucky in that it had these fucking string of one-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had the Nolan trilogy, you had the Snyderverse, you had the first Todd Phillips movie, you had even this last one, the Batman. It wasn't bad. It wasn't the worst thing.
It was actually very good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I would have cut that last, like I would have ended it at Arkham.
Oh, sure.
It wasn't bad. But then, then they'll just do something fucking schizophrenic.
Right.
And they go bipolar on you and you're like, well, wait, a musical? What? But
anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, they can't all be 7,
No, indeed. Unfortunately, those would actually be good movies.
Mm-hmm.
So where were we? Yeah, there's Kong fucking eating some fucking calamari on the menu.
So silly. Yeah.
I mean, it's setting him up much more as the hero of the story, saving the other wildlife on there. The protector against the really bad predators out there. You get a sense that they're really you get the sense that Kong's not going down this time,
right?
That kind of thing. They avoid to a certain extent the Brie Larson connection.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's gonna go crazy over this blonde chick. That kind of thing. And
that first of all, a little bit too cliche.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's Brie Larson, so stay away from her in the first place. And that's what I was like, stay away from Brie Larson. No, don't do that, man. You stay there. But, I also like the fact that there's no romantic element in this movie. Like, it would be an unnecessary.
On. I mean, Tom Hiddleston's kind of maybe getting to the point where he might flirt with this strong female character, but
they never do. And it would be unnecessary.
Right.
It would be like we did that with Ford and Elle in the Godzilla movie. You didn't really need it here. It would be unnecessary. These kinds of things. These people are focused on staying alive.
Yeah, it's all business. And the way it should be.
Yeah. You're starting to see the turn in Samuel Jackson, where Cole makes that statement sometimes. What did he say? Sometimes an enemy doesn't exist until you go looking for one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a twist now in Samuel Jackson between leaving the island. He doesn't want to do that anymore. He just wants to kill Kong.
Right.
And like even the lives of his men become secondary. This kind of thing. And Samuel Jackson's really good at playing an evil bastard.
Yes.
He plays an exceptionally evil bastard. And he's an exceptional actor.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, we're going down this fucking rabbit hole. And he kind of goes crazy. But it's not necessarily a raving, like he's within the boundary of the rules.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could see it's like, you're right, it's like Ahab.
Yep. He's definitely a fan of science fiction, Sam Jackson is.
Yeah.
I mean, he loves Star Wars. You can tell from his performance as Mace Windu. And he probably grew up watching Godzilla and King Kong just like us.
Yeah,
It's not like he's just phoning in a performance. He's really delivering because he's in a King Kong movie. And how many times do you get to do that?
yeah. He loves playing Nick Fury.
Yeah,
He's a
yes,
good. He's a pretty
yes.
good Nick Fury. I like him as Nick Fury. He was talking. I saw this thing today, quite coincidentally. He said he doesn't go statue chasing. He's not. He said, "I'm not looking for Oscars." He goes, "I'd rather have fun."
Yeah,
And he mentioned playing Mace Windu. He goes, "I like playing Mace Windu." He goes, "I like playing Nick Fury."
right.
If you can fill my schedule up with that, where I can just have fun. He's like, who gives a shit about an Oscar?
Right.
That kind of thing. And, that's kind of refreshing to hear.
Right, but then he'll turn around and play something super serious like a slave in Quentin Tarantino's movie Django.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's an exceptionally evil
Again,
bastard in that.
evil guy, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So he can flip on you. This movie itself looks like they're just having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the whole thing, it looks like just a ton of fun. You can probably tell there's a lot of laughing and all that, going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You're introducing the comic element with John C. Reilly. If there was
all those lines were well deserved. They work for me. It's not like you're just loading it up with nonsense, one-liners. He's really good at at that comic relief stuff.
Yeah, and it's a deadpan.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deadpan kind of comic because he can really do it over the top as well. But he just plays this kind of low key, like this guy who's kind of, he's kind of twitchy, these sorts of things. Again, the soundtrack is fucking great when he meets the Vietnam soldiers and they start playing. They introduce him to David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, what happened to, this, I forget what, ragtime or whatever music he was listening to back then, He's like,
right.
Oh, man, this is it back then. He starts arguing with him about baseball.
Yeah, which is it's a cool thing because that is the generation gap between the Vietnam, generation and the World War II generation, and they're playing it up, but they can still bond over baseball, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. If there are a couple of things I would have liked to see. Well, I would have liked to have seen the Japanese guy, Gunpei.
Yeah.
It would have been cool if Gunpei could have been part of the story. I'm not complaining about it, but it would have been cool. I guess if there was one thing also, what were your thoughts of the creature for the villain?
Okay.
I wasn't.
They
could have been better.
I was a little let down with the creature. It could have been a little bit cooler. I mean, I know that the main adversary of King Kong is supposed to be some kind of lizard thing, but the way they looked with the skull and the missing eyes was just a little bit too goofy. Like the
CGI on it wasn't great.
Right.
The CGI on it wasn't great. If you could have gone with something more traditional, almost like a T-Rex kind of thing, like a warm-up for Godzilla, that kind of thing, that would have been okay. Or, some kind of a serpent, although he did deal on that octopus really quickly, he didn't take long to, he ate the fucking octopus.
They had to figure out something that was otherworldly and something that was a notch above, the water buffalo and the octopus. I know they tried. It just didn't hit it for me.
Yeah. Same here. I was a little disappointed, and I wasn't afraid, or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like, really, that's it. That's the big antagonist. Okay, no problem. You can't have everything. It's just, it occurred to me, Kong's not like Godzilla. Kong is an isolationist.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he meant to be. We find out that he's not only a juvenile, but that his parents, bodies are rotting in that one corner. So you're supposed to feel bad for him. He doesn't want to be in isolation. He just is.
But it's not like Godzilla. Like Godzilla goes looking for the fight.
Like this one just happens to show up. Yeah.
Well, like when you do 2014, those Mutos kind of appear in Japan. and then the Mutos, appear in Hawaii, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Godzilla's like, no, 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 he's like the global bouncer.
Yeah.
We're not having this shit.
Don't
Don't make me get up off my don't make me get up off my couch.
Right.
It's like that kind of thing. Whereas
and
King
Kong just
Kong,
wants to be left alone.
yeah, just leave me the fuck alone. Why are you here? You're bothering me. I'll fight these things if I have to, but otherwise, if it's happening in another part of the world, I don't give a fuck. It's not my problem. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the premise for Kong versus Godzilla. They move him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sort of trick him into moving, or they tranquilize him, or something like that.
Yeah, don't give it away. Let people watch it.
Yeah. Okay. So, it leads to a couple of big battles where Sam Jackson decides that he's gone full fucking apocalypse now. He's going to napalm the water.
Yep.
He ends up turning his own people against him because he's gone fucking crazy.
And they got to make that they got to make that rendezvous point.
Yeah. Yeah, he's fucking
tension. Are we going to try to survive and get to the rendezvous, or are we going to try and kill these things?
Yeah, and he's fucking up everyone's program here, because he's taking everybody's life, and like putting it in jeopardy. And basically, they all leave him.
Mm-hmm.
His own people fucking leave him. Hiddleston leaves him. He pulls a gun on just about everybody. Throughout the course of the movie, he pulls a gun on John Goodman.
Mm-hmm.
He pulls a gun on Brie Larson.
Yep.
He pulls a rifle on Brie Larson, who's completely fucking unarmed. I think he pulls a gun on John C. Reilly. I don't think he pulled it on his own men. I don't think so. Did he pull one on Hiddleston? I don't think so. I think Hiddleston steps in front at one point when he's going to shoot Brie Larson. So, he's gone, over the fucking line, and he just gets fucking... That scene where Kong wakes up after he smoked him with the fucking napalm, and he wakes up, and you just see the look on his face. It's like the first person he sees is Sam Jackson, and again, that hand just comes down and just fucking squashes him into fucking jelly. And it's just fucking great. Again, the final battle didn't do much for me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't terribly impressed by the monster.
Because you felt it was a placekeeper. Like we went into this movie knowing that it was the setup so that there could be a Godzilla versus Kong. So this is more or less like an expositionary movie.
Kind of, but when we saw, we didn't know that this was happening when we saw 2014. But we talked about how cool those battle scenes were.
Yeah, and the Mutos are pretty cool looking.
Yeah, the Mutos, I thought they were Lovecraft. You thought they were like Cloverfield. But we talked about how cool the shots were with the halo drop. You're seeing things in glimpses here and there, and then you get a little bit of it, full force, the nuclear breath, and then fighting the troops. The special forces guys are just getting fucking smacked. No matter what. This battle, it didn't do much for me.
Yeah.
The troops are trying to help Kong a little bit, and I don't know. That's where it kind of fell apart in the final battle scene, which really isn't the end of the movie.
Right.
But the final battle scene was a little anticlimactic because I think it wasn't the greatest creature that it could have been.
Right. Again, placeholder, man. Just a placeholder.
Yeah, kind of. If you could have done it a little different. Something.
Well, when I was watching it, this seemed to be like they were trying to put 4 different movies together and sort of combine them. And I don't think that they completely were successful at it. So, as one movie is progressing, the other movie just it stalls out. And I think the final battle of the stalled out.
Wait, what do you mean 4 different movies?
There's the Vietnam movie.
Okay.
It's kind of like Moby Dick movie. There's the kind of maybe environmentalist through line.
The Monarch. Yeah, the Monarch thing.
Yeah, the Monarch thing. And then there is King Kong and his arc through the movie, which is basically just beating everything up.
So if you get 3 out of 4, that's 75%. And the King Kong arc, I'd say works. So if that's 25%, I'd give it 15 or
Okay.
10 or 15. So it's about 85% overall.
Right.
85 out of 100. It's not bad. It's not a great monster. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm bagging the movie. I like the movie. I own it on Blu-ray.
Back in the movie, it's very fun. I would watch it over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm not approaching it like it's gonna be earth shattering, but
yeah,
it's
it's
a
not
good
Apocalypse
fun
Now,
monster
but
movie.
yeah, it's a good fun monster movie. Kong wins. They make the rendezvous point. They get the hell out of there. What's left? And that's kind of the end of the movie, but it isn't.
Right.
Because then you go into John C. Reilly actually making it back to America.
It was delightful. That was like very
Yeah.
yeah. It was just very adorable. The whole
Yeah.
thing about him being home and watching baseball and all that.
Yeah, he gets to meet his son and shake his son's hand for the first time. He said, his last letter, his wife had just given birth. So he said he had a son out there. He didn't know he had a wife. He didn't know if his wife had waited. It looks like she waited or, had just not remarried at least.
Yep.
And so it looks like, he's able to return honorably.
Yeah. Very Norman Rockwell.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's a feel good that you wouldn't necessarily associate with a monster movie, with a Godzilla movie, but they're bookends.
Yeah,
here we are starting
one of the movie's arcs, and that's more successful than some others.
Yeah, and it ends with him sipping a beer, eating a hot dog with a plate of chips, and watching the Cubs game.
Yep.
He's back in Chicago. He's sitting in front of on his couch. Man's home is his castle. It's a very old, sort of feeling to it. But there he is, in front of his TV, and he's just, very happy. He seems to have adjusted well, this kind of thing. And, that's kind of how the movie ends. So it's a successful movie. I would highly recommend it if for some reason somebody on this, that catches it in the replay hasn't seen it. It's fantastic.
It's worth seeing on the big screen if you haven't seen it. If it ever comes to like a special engagement, like the Monsterverse special weekend or something, go see it on the big screen, because these movies are made to be seen on the big screen. They really are like these like the old Technicolor, cinerama kind of
CinemaScope.
Yeah. You're supposed to see big effects in a big way, and the Godzilla movies, more than any, you got to see it on the big screen.
I can't remember if I did see this in the cinema. I can't remember.
I did.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
I was overseas. I don't remember if I saw this one in the theater. It seems that I would have, but maybe I didn't. I don't remember exactly.
The only one I didn't get to see on the big screen was Kong versus Godzilla, and that's
because we were all
because of COVID.
Yeah, we were all at home. Now, there is a small post-credit scene at the end of the credits where we see Hiddleston and Brie Larson are being detained by the secret government organization, so on and so forth. And then the egghead, it's really not, the black shirts or, the black coats or anything like that. It's the egghead organization, Monarch. Kong is not the only king. And at first, when I saw this, I didn't make a connect. Oh, like they're going to put them together. I didn't do that because I was overseas and I wasn't talking to too many people who were Godzilla fans or whatever. But then I'm like, oh, okay, so this is what they're going to do. And Godzilla, and you see Ghidorah, and I think Rodan. They make references to these sorts of things, and so they set up for the next film.
Yep.
For a second movie, I think this is the second movie in the franchise. They've got 2 in a row that are solid.
Yeah, 2 good opening sort of setups for what is coming, which is they're gonna meet eventually.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't dismiss the next movie, which we're going to cover next Tuesday, King of the Monsters.
The Monsterverse would not be complete without an all-out monster attack. So we'll talk about that next week.
Indeed.
And I've only seen it once, and I can't wait to sit down and watch it again. The DVD just came in, and I am ready to watch it again.
Nice, nice. I own that on Blu-ray too, so I'm going to sit down and just enjoy some monsters. Again, another pretty solid cast. This was, of all the movies, this probably had the best casting.
Yeah,
I think overall of all four, but the next one isn't bad either. Okay, I think that pretty much covers it. This movie is currently streaming on HBO Max. All of the Godzillas, the old school Godzillas. The second Godzilla movie that we were talking about after 54, Raids Again, is there on HBO Max. So you can catch any of these at any time. I would strongly suggest you dial it up.
Heck yeah.
If you like what you saw here today, like, subscribe to the channel, please. It all helps out. Leave a comment. One-word comment is fine. Helps with the traffic flow. My thanks to Mighty Bill Young, who is here today to talk some monsters. We will be back tomorrow, 8 p.m., as we kick off our subthread, Summer of Crime. It's fucking hot out.
Yes.
So that means it's summer, and we're going to be covering a whole series of crime thrillers because I like fucking crime thrillers. And we're starting
for the summer.
Huh?
They're perfect for the summer.
Yeah, man, it's hot and people are in a bad mood and they're going to commit some crime.
Yeah.
And we're starting off with Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, which is actually a perfect movie. If you think it's only a comic book movie, you're mistaken.
You're wrong.
And we're going to explain why. So join us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock for The Dark Knight. My thanks once again to Mighty Bill Young, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
All right.